Hey guys, welcome back to the second channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Katie Wismer. I'm an author and an editor. My main channel is Casebook Date. It's linked down below. That's for all of the author and writing stuff. And this is my second channel, which is kind of just the dumping ground for everything else, which is where this video comes in. I just kind of got this idea randomly and then I really wanted to make it. So today we're going to be tier ranking all of the horror movies that I saw in 2022. A lot of these were 2022 releases, a lot of them aren't. And I tried to remember all of the movies that I watched. I probably missed some, but if you don't know me, horror is one of my first loves. I have been crazy about horror movies pretty much my entire life. If you've read my Marionette series, they're dark fantasy, but there are definitely horror elements in there. I feel like my love of horror definitely comes through in those books. I should give you a warning right now. My taste in horror movies is I like bad horror movies. Like, I know that they're bad. So should you take this as a recommendation video, or should you take this as a these are the movies I should stay away from? I don't really know. So yeah, we're just gonna get straight into it. We've got 5 tiers today. If you've seen any of these movies, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments, or if I missed any that came out in 2022 that you feel like were really notable, let me know. If they're not on this list, odds are I forgot about it, I haven't seen it yet, or I have no intention of seeing it because it's a subgenre I don't like. Our tiers for today, we have favorites, bloody good time, not for me, unmemorable, and waste of time. As picky as I am with my horror movies, I'm also a complete hypocrite. Like, I have standards for like a certain kind of subgenre, and then I don't carry those over for certain movies because I want different things from different kinds. You'll see what I'm talking about. Some of these also, are they a horror movie? Are they more of a thriller? It's a little bit blurry, but we're gonna start with The Circle. This was on Netflix. Honestly, I'm gonna put it in bloody good time. I feel like this isn't super memorable to me. It's not super special, but I had a good time watching it. I think if you haven't seen it yet, if this is a kind of subgenre that you like, it's worth the watch. I kind of liked the weird game show feel to it. Everybody on these spots are like deciding which one of them is going to die next, and it's been a while since I've seen it. It's clearly not that memorable, but it's like a laser kind of thing that just like shoots them down. If you're just looking for something like really easy to watch, I think it's worth the watch. Now, this is obviously not a new release, but this franchise I have been trying to watch. I swear to God, I have started and stopped this first movie at least 5 times and never been able to make it through. So I'm gonna put it in not for me. I Know What You Did Last Summer. You would think, if you know me at all, that this is exactly my taste in movies. This time period, this atmosphere, this vibe, the cast, everything on paper, it looks like I should love these movies, and for whatever reason I just cannot get into them. I just can't get through them, and I'm someone who loves bad, trashy slasher movies. Like, that is a subgenre I enjoy, and for some reason I just can't get into these. I know they just remade it, or they're gonna remake it. I don't know if I'm gonna watch it if I couldn't even get into the original. Next we have Old. I feel like this is kind of like a controversial one. I feel like a lot of people didn't like this. I'm gonna put it in unmemorable, but that doesn't mean I didn't like it. It's not something I'm gonna go back and rewatch a lot, and it's not something I'm going to recommend super often, but if you haven't seen it yet, I think it's worth the watch once, if that makes sense. A bunch of people are on a beach and they're growing old at like a really rapid pace. Yeah, I don't really have anything negative to say about it. I don't really have anything positive to say about it. It was just like solidly okay. But then we come to We Need to Do Something. And if there was a tier below waste of time, something with much more anger, that would be for this movie. I hated this. I like the passion of hatred that I feel for this movie. It's been a long time since I've like disliked something as much as I disliked this one, and I couldn't even tell you why. I don't know what, everything about this was unlikable to me. I hated it. I hated it. I don't even think it's worth the hate watch. Just don't watch it. Then we come to A Cabin in the Woods. That goes up in favorites. This is clearly not a new release, and the reason why it's a recent watch is because I rewatch it often because it's a favorite. This is one of those movies where I totally understand why they didn't do any kind of sequels or a franchise based on the way that it ended, but I kind of wish they had made installments like from before, so we could have seen some of the other, like, I don't know what to call them, trials, like previous years. They just had so many options of like what different things, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to say it without spoiling in case anyone hasn't seen it yet. I wish we had seen more of these movies. Honestly, I loved this so much, but I also feel like none of the sequels that they could have made would have been as good as the first. And like, it got its point across, I understand, but I would have had fun watching more of these movies even if they weren't as good. Then we're coming to the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is just not for me. This is another series. You'll see later down a lot of the, like, I don't want to say kind of like classic franchises in horror, a lot of the like trailblazers, a lot of the ones that really changed the genre. I've been trying to get into the ones that I haven't seen before, and for whatever reason I've just been having a hard time. They're just not for me. Like I said, I know I don't have the best taste in horror movies, and I'm also not here for the gatekeeping, so if we're gonna be rude in the comments, I'm not here for that. This one's just not for me. Coming up to The Purge, I'm putting it in unmemorable, but again, this doesn't mean I didn't like it. I like the Purge movies. I will watch them whenever they come out, but they are pretty like unmemorable to me. I don't remember anything that different from one installment to the other. They're all pretty much the same to me. What was this one even called? The Forever Purge. It's like when people continued even after the Purge was supposed to stop. I will continue to watch them. I find them to be just entertaining. They're not favorites. They're not super memorable. But then coming to The Descent, this is a favorite. I rewatch this probably more than any other horror movie. This movie, if you are gonna take any recommendation from this video, it should be this one, because I have bad taste in horror movies, but not when it comes to this one. This one's just good. The sequel, questionable, but this movie scared the shit out of me the first time I watched it. Looking back on it now, it was made in like early 2000s, so the special effects and everything, you can tell that that's when it was made. It's still, the movie, it's still so solidly good. Very claustrophobic. It's like a monster movie, but honestly I feel like the claustrophobia is what really sets this movie apart. Excellent cast, just so good. And then The Mist, I'm actually gonna put this in Bloody Good Time, which is surprising to me because I am not a huge Stephen King fan. His stories just tend to be hit or miss with me, and more often than not they don't do it for me. The Mist, I really liked. This was my first time seeing it. Yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised by this. I really like surprisingly, I really liked the weird, like, religious subplot to it. And then, you know, all the creatures in The Mist. Gross. Anything bug-like grosses me out, but in the best way. Worth the watch. Now this is a more recent release. We have The Menu. I'm gonna put this in not for me. It took me a long time to kind of figure out why I didn't love this movie. I watched it with one of my best friends and she really liked it, and we were talking about it afterwards, and I was trying to figure out like why she was so enthusiastic about it, and I was just kind of like, I felt so unsatisfied at the end of this movie, which is ironic if you've seen the movie. I can see what it was going for, and I think it has some good things going for it. I think it's worth the watch once if you're curious about it, but I left the movie like I wish there had been a more satisfying, it's not even the ending itself that was unsatisfying, it's just like the whole premise. I feel like the movie thought it was smarter than it was, and it was trying to send a message. It had, you know, all of this commentary in there, and for one thing, it doesn't feel like a horror movie to me at all. More of like the thriller kind of slow burn, and I just found it to be pretty underwhelming. But then we come to Barbarian. Y'all, I didn't know anything about this movie before I watched it, and then afterwards I realized everyone was talking about it. Bloody Good Time. This movie was wild. I am shocked by how much I liked this. It's not a new favorite or anything, but it's definitely something, if you haven't seen it, you should watch it at least once. The first half in particular, the tension, it's so good. It gets a little weird, but I liked the humor in here. I laughed out loud like several times. The ending, it didn't really stick the landing for me. Like the ending wasn't really it, but the journey getting there was still fun, so I think it's worth the watch. It's so interesting because I feel like there's a clear line down the middle of the movie where like there's the first half of it and then there's the second half of it. And the first half of it, the setup is that these two people accidentally book the same Airbnb, and so then they have to stay there together. So you have this like weird, uncomfortable situation, a single woman being alone with a man in an Airbnb, fearing for her safety, and then quickly that story turns when they find something weird in the basement of this Airbnb. So good. The next one is Night Teeth. Is this even a horror movie? We're gonna put it in unmemorable, which is such a disappointment to me because this movie should have been in favorites for me. Like, this has everything that I love in movies, and I just feel like it was a missed opportunity. Like everything about this just felt kind of flat for me. It could have been better. It could have been better. Now we're coming to The Lodge. I hated this movie. This is going into a waste of time. Literally only watch this if you want to come out of it feeling infuriated. I don't even want to talk about it. We're gonna move on. Death of Me was a bloody good time for me. This is, I don't think it's really anything special. This couple goes on vacation. They're in a foreign country, and you know, the whole like American tourism subgenre, which honestly I tend to not really like, but I feel like this movie was really well done. I think this is a good one to go into not knowing too much about it if you don't yet. Choose or Die was super unmemorable for me. I had high hopes for this, but honestly I found this movie to be boring, which is like the last thing you want from a scary movie. I guess maybe if you're like really into gaming, this might be interesting to you. I don't know, this just felt really flat for me. Same with The Invitation. I'm not gonna put it in waste of time because if you like this kind of thing, you'll probably really like this movie. I'm hesitant to even call it a horror movie. It's PG-13, so I kind of went with those kind of expectations. Vampires, I love my vampires, but this, if you're looking for something scary, this isn't it. If you just want something with vampires, I don't really know what else to say on that one, honestly. We're gonna put Candyman in Not For Me. You can see I was watching all the remakes this year, and there's nothing that I can point out about this movie that was wrong with it. Like there's nothing that I didn't like about it. It just didn't like really grab me the way that my favorites do. Like there were some franchises that I just like cling on to and I love them and I will recommend them to anyone who will listen. And this one just didn't really make me feel anything super strongly about it one way or another. Still worth the watch at least once if you haven't seen it. Malignant. I could put this in waste of time or I could put it in bloody good time. We're gonna put it in bloody good time. This movie was so freaking bizarre. I recommend watching it because I was laughing hysterically. Like this was so ridiculous that it was funny. I don't think it was trying to be funny, but it was so funny. Worth the watch at least once. It's entertaining if nothing else. The next one is No Exit, and I'm gonna put this in bloody good time too, though go in with the expectations for this to be more like a thriller than a horror movie, where all of these strangers are trapped together during this storm and then someone finds that there is someone locked and like chained up in the back of someone's car. Incident in a Ghostland I just watched recently. I'm gonna put it in unmemorable. Honestly, I'm realizing I should have put one more tier in here that was like more just like okay. Again, this is something that maybe watch once. I don't think you're really missing out if you don't. It does have an interesting, I don't even want to say that, I don't want to spoil it. It pleasantly surprised me. It's better than I thought it would be. It is disturbing. So if you have the stomach for it, I would watch it once. And I don't mean stomach for it in the sense that it's super gory, because it's not, it's just disturbing. Now we have the new Hellraiser. Honestly, I could put it in bloody good time. Like I had a good time watching it, but I'm gonna put it in Not For Me. Because with this being a remake and there being so many Hellraiser movies, if I had like really enjoyed this, if I'd loved it, watching this would have made me want to go back and watch all of the other ones, right? And I just like felt no desire to do that after watching this. Like seeing this one was enough for me. I mainly watched this because again, I hadn't seen the Hellraiser movies before, so I was curious about it. I don't know if starting with the remake was the right move on that one, but it wasn't really anything special for me. But I'm glad to know what people are talking about now. Ready or Not, straight up into my favorites if you like comedy horror, but where the horror is still the main element, because you know sometimes it's like a dark comedy with a little bit of horror. This is horror with a little bit of comedy. This is like the perfect balance of that. I rewatch this movie all the time. It's one of my all-time favorites. A girl marries into this rich family on her wedding night. Whole family decides they're gonna try and kill her in a game of hide and seek. Last Night in Soho. Unfortunately, I'm gonna put this in unmemorable. Actually, I'm just gonna put this in Not For Me because it was a disappointment for me. This was honestly one of the movies I was most looking forward to. I think this came out in 2021 and there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's solidly good for what it is. It just isn't what I wanted it to be. I was hoping it was gonna take a different turn. It was like solidly okay. I think it's still worth the watch once. Very aesthetically pleasing, very visually pretty. The story just, it was kind of underwhelming to me. I was hoping it was going to go a different direction. Next we have Final Destination, up into favorites. I rewatch these movies often. These are like background noise for me. I'll just kind of like put them on in the background while I'm working. I love these movies. Final Destination is one of those franchises where they could just like keep putting out movies and I don't care how bad they are, I will just continue to watch them. I don't really know what it is about them. I think they strike that kind of perfect tone of they're pretty gory movies, but they don't take themselves too seriously, so they're just kind of ridiculous and entertaining. No Escape. I'm gonna put In Bloody Good Time. This movie honestly shocked me by how much I liked it. I think this was really solidly good. This is about a group of friends. They're in an escape room and things take a very dark turn. I went into this with no expectations and I was blown away, honestly. I will definitely rewatch this at some point. I really liked this one. Smile, I'm just gonna put in unmemorable. This, to me, the ending didn't really do it for me. I know some people really like the ending. It kind of reminded me of that one Truth or Dare movie with the smile. It wasn't anything special to me. I will say the one scene that was like horrifying to me was the birthday party with the cat. Man. Now, Triangle, I'm gonna put in not for me. However, if you haven't seen this movie, I'm gonna recommend that you watch it at least once. It's not something I'm gonna rewatch. I think it's well done. I don't have any problems with it. Like, I wouldn't point to anything and be like, this is what it needed to do differently. I just didn't, it's just not particularly for me, but it's worth the watch once if you haven't seen it. Crawl, bloody good time if you like the monster movies. Alligator, she's trapped in a basement. Very, very good with the tension, and overall just, I would rewatch this. This was really good. Evil Dead, not for me. Again, clearly watching all of the remakes this year, and I've seen so many people say that this is their favorite of the Evil Dead movies, so that makes me hesitant to go back and watch any of the other ones because this one just, to me, forgettable. I really feel like the problem is seeing so many horror movies before going back and seeing these classics. So now, of course, I've seen it all before because a lot of movies were like inspired by these movies. So it may have been the first one to do something like this. Like, I understand why it would be significant, but to me, I'm just like bored watching it because I'm like, I've seen stuff like this a million times before. This isn't for me. However, I have heard that the other Evil Dead movies have a totally different tone to them than this remake, so that does make me curious. Prom Night, bloody good time. This is just a bad teen slasher movie, but I rewatch it often and I just think it's a good time. This girl's teacher was like obsessed with her and breaks out of prison and comes to kill all of her friends, so he's the only one left for her on her prom night. Now I get to the Saw movies. Y'all, why didn't anyone tell me that I would like the Saw movies? I'm gonna put it up in favorites. I watched Saw for the first time this year, or it was the end of 2022. I have spent my whole life thinking there is no way I would like those movies. And it wasn't until I was talking to my friend and she was like, yeah, I'd say they're kind of similar to Final Destination. And I was like, I love Final Destination. Like, are you kidding? If this is anything like that, I'm gonna like these. So then I ended up binge watching all, however many are there out now? 9 in like a week. So no one is more surprised that I liked these movies than me. I think I really bought into the whole, like, they're just torture porn, and I thought it was gonna be too much for me. And then, no, they were really good. I really liked them. I have many issues with them. I feel like there's a lot of missed opportunities with them. And for whatever reason, I was much more like picking apart with them than I am with the Final Destination movies, because those have issues with them too. So I'm almost like wanting to put Saw in bloody good time because I feel like it's not quite into favorites. I definitely like Final Destination more than I like Saw, but I was shocked by how much I liked these movies. Shocked, I tell you. Blood Red Sky, bloody good time. This is one of the biggest surprises for me recently. This is on Netflix. If you like vampires trapped on an airplane and the vampirism like spreads like zombies basically. This was so good. Highly enjoyed. Highly enjoyed. Same with The Wretched, bloody good time. I picked this out on Netflix one night not knowing what it was and was really pleasantly surprised. This one was like genuinely creepy. Excellent. The vibes were excellent. To be honest, it wasn't super memorable. I can't even really remember that much about it. It's like a witch in the woods that like crawls out and like does something. People like don't remember who they are. They like forget their families and stuff. It was really good. And then X will be the last one for this. It's gonna go into not for me. I don't think it was terrible. You can ask Sarah and Jesse because we watched this together when we were in Toronto. We were just like yelling at the TV the whole time we were watching this, like, what is going on? It was an experience. If you haven't watched it, watch it once. Basically, this film crew rents out this place to make a porn video where this older couple lives in the main house and there is something wrong with this older couple. I expected more from this, to be honest. I found it relatively predictable and just like not that special or memorable. There's nothing wrong with it. It just wasn't it didn't like blow me away. It's not gonna stick with me, you know? So that's the ranking. If you have any recommendations for movies that you think I would like based on the movies that I liked in this video, I would love to hear them. If you also are into the horror movies, I'd love to chat with you down below. It's not really something I talk about on my channels very often, but it's clearly something I spend a lot of time doing. On the complete flip side, if you also happen to read romantic suspense books, my next book, Broken Perfect Lies, comes out February 20th. It's a spicy bodyguard, Hannah Montana-esque romance. If you're new here, maybe stick around. Other than that, I'll just see you guys in my next video very, very soon.